So let's look at Psalm 27 again and look at verse 6 again. Then I will hold my head high, high above my enemies who surround me. At his sanctuary I will offer sacrifices with shouts of joy, singing and praising the Lord with music. It's that part B of that verse. At his sanctuary I will offer sacrifices with shouts of joy, singing and praising the Lord with music. I talked a little bit about in my world, I think your world too probably, when it comes time to make sacrifices, I often do them not joyfully. And that is, I cheat myself by that. You know, I make sacrifices for my kids and my grandkids and for Debbie. And I wish I could say, and I do it with gusto and joy always. Well, I could tell you that, but it'd be a lie. There are just times when I'm kind of like, oh, I'm tapped out, or come on, you. So I'm still in recovery from being a very selfish person. I think most of us may have to adjust our what would be our normal operating procedure in order to offer sacrifices with shouts of joy. Can you imagine? I just thought of this. At offering time at your church, a lot of churches pass a basket or a plate or whatever. One of the churches we attended, they passed a big round plastic bucket for you to put your tithes and offerings into. And can you imagine that the buckets get passed, and as people put their offering in, they just shout, hot diggity, I'm so glad, I love giving. Wouldn't that be a hoot? A friend of mine who's now with the Lord, Ron Ellerick, described a moment. He and his wife Cindy had gone to Africa, and they were just missionaries, okay? But a lot of unreached people in their area. They established churches, and he said, this is how they did offerings there. They didn't pass an offering plate. They put a container, basket, at the front. And at offering time, everyone was invited to come down and give their gift. So the music, I don't mean this in any racial sense, but the music in an African church is generally more lively than most of churches in America that I've ever been in. Well, that music accompanied people coming down the center aisle and giving their gift, which is pretty neat to me. But here's the other thing. If someone in the crowd didn't have means to make a gift of money, they could get in line and take something out of the basket and go around the auditorium, the meeting area, and then they could go down the aisle and drop that in the offering. And there was joy in it. It was not about, oh boy, they're asking for more. Seems like they're always asking for more. This was a joyful expression of their devotion to God and their gratitude for his provision. I think that's what David's talking about. And then he says, not only with shouts of joy, He says, singing and praising the Lord with music. If you're a music person, you can instantly relate to that. If you're not, it's not so easy to relate to. David was a musician. He was a singer. He played the harp. He composed music. So for him, made all kinds of sense that he would express his love for God, his gratitude to God, his praise to God using music. And I don't want to camp out on this, but what if you don't have a music background and you're not a musician, and there's more reasons than just the fact that people don't like to sing, that people don't sing. What if, okay, I know the thing, make a joyful noise. Okay, but honestly, when David wrote that, he was not talking about music. He was talking about shouts of joy. Okay, so if you're not a music person, what do you get out of this? Just an idea. Maybe a principle here is that David was saying, you know how you're wired? Use how you're wired to express your gratitude and love for and praise for God. It's easy for me to think quickly about the artists, like if you're a painter, if you're a poet, if you're a musician, if you're an author or a writer, or, but gosh, it'd be unfair to say, well, that's it. If you don't fit in those buckets, then it sucks to be you. I am convinced that what you do for your career is a vehicle for offering praise to God. I don't want to pick on any one particular occupation, but what if I'm a greeter at Walmart? Hey, how I greet people at Walmart can be an expression of my love for God, and it will be an act of worship and an act of praise for Him and to Him. I have a friend who's an engineer, and big time engineer, right? And in his case, makes me happy to, as we talk and we meet for coffee, and he's a good friend. His engineering work is an act of worship. It's a way for him to express his gratitude to God and to praise Him, to reflect His goodness, and even, believe it or not, His glory to the world. Okay, so what's your career? What's your occupation? If you're retired, then look at what you still do stuff, right? Whatever you do, Paul writes it this way: whatever you do in word or deed, do it all to the glory of God. So there you go. And then verse 7, he says, hear me as I pray, O Lord. Be merciful and answer me. Have you ever had a season of your life where, on an emotional level, it felt like God was not paying attention? Where it felt like I'm not getting any answers to my prayers. I'm not even sure my prayers you know, does he listen? If he's listening, he's sure not doing anything. David had those moments. And part of the reason he had those moments is because he was a fully orbed and self-aware, emotional person. Hear me as I pray, O Lord. Why would he say that? Because I think at times it felt like to him he wasn't being heard. Be merciful and answer me. Now, mercy, I talk about mercy and grace and justice a lot. Mercy is getting what I don't deserve. I'm trying to think of a time where I could legitimately say, well, I asked God to give me something that I deserve. Can't think of it. One of the things about that whole idea of get what you deserve is that almost every advertising campaign is about you deserve this. Well, when you look at the biggest picture, in my opinion, it's not about I deserve this, because I can tell you what I deserve, and it is not good. I ask God for his provision, and I ask for some pretty specific things. Actually, I ask for some very specific things, but it's his mercy that would give me that. I don't deserve any of this stuff. Hear me as I pray, O Lord. Be merciful and answer me. Now, one of the good things, I think a really neat thing about this particular psalm is he's being very, very gut honest. Hear me when I pray, O Lord. Be merciful and answer me. And in the English versions, there's an exclamation point after be merciful and answer me. It's not like he's saying, oh Lord, could you please? He's saying, God, be merciful and answer me. And then he goes on in verse 8, my heart has heard you say, come and talk with me. Do not turn your back on me. Do not reject me, your servant, in anger. You have always been my helper. Don't leave me now. Don't abandon me, O God of my salvation. All right. This is a man who knows adversity. And he's in a season, I don't think it's just a moment, a season of adversity. And so, when I'm in a season of adversity, when you're in a season of adversity, it might be a really smart thing, helpful thing for us to maybe personalize what David has said in Psalm 27. My heart has heard you say, come talk with me. We're going to come back to that next time. That's where we will start, because there's some really, I think, pretty good stuff in that. So I'll close for now and see you next time on Soul Care with Stevie Boy.